Hello there, I am Scorched Scales, and over the last week, I have been reading the second book of Arc 3, The Hive Queen. Now, I'll fully admit, I've literally heard nothing about this book. Like, for every single other book, I've at least heard things about it. I've heard people express their opinions about it. But for this book, I'm fairly certain The Hive Queen is the only Wings of Fire book that I don't know the general consensus on. And now, after reading the book, I don't see why. Because if we went to the tier list, you would see that as of right now, like literally, I finished the book last night. Right now, I would rank the Hive Queen around here. I know. I too am very surprised how much I enjoyed this book, considering I've literally heard nobody talk about this. But I can see why this could very easily be overshadowed by other books in the series, which we'll get to later. I would say that this is pretty much the definition of a high 7, low 8 book. I personally would still rank it below the Dragonette Prophecy, but that's mainly because of one major issue I have towards the end of this book. So, let's cut straight to the chase and talk about the book. And I will say, even though I finished reading this last night, I can already tell my thoughts are going to be a bit scattered, because I'm struggling to remember what happened. I'm pretty sure I might be developing dementia. Okay, so, The Hive Queen. I did really like this book. And personally, I enjoyed this a lot more than The Lost Continent. Like, this book improves on a lot of the issues that I had with Lost Continent. However, there are a few issues that have carried over, and there are some critiques that I have with this book that weren't present in The Lost Continent. I'm gonna start by talking about the negatives first, because I actually have a fair few positive things to say. But however, I do have one main big issue that I want to talk about. And that in particular to me, like the big fault of this book to me, was the climax. Or hell, just most of the end in general. Because a lot of this book is like deeply centered on Cricket and her personal issues. And a lot of the book is spent like dissecting what's going on around her and with her trying to piece every part of this puzzle together. But just the ending in general just felt a bit anticlimactic to me. It feels like there's two of them. Like the first climax is when Cricket gets captured and gets tossed in jail, but that gets resolves immediately. It's like Cricket pulled out a bloody get out of jail free card. And then the other climax happens really quickly, that I don't really know if I can call it a climax. But it's after the group have discovered that, the thing that's controlling the Hivewings, it all comes from a plant. And then they go on, they break into the greenhouse, and they burn all the plants inside of it. Like, yeah, theoretically, this should be the climax. This should be the big BAM at the end. Since Cricket's goal throughout the entirety of this book was to find what's controlling the Hivewings, so she could potentially free them. So destroying these plants should be a big hurrah! But it didn't really feel like that. But I guess the reason why the whole event could feel more melancholy is due to right before them breaking into the greenhouse, the Leafwings. They go behind Sundew's back and burn a hive to the ground, which gives the group the chance to burn down the greenhouse. So, me not feeling that triumphant about the ending might be the point, considering that a lot of people had to die for this to happen. I think another reason why the climax didn't really hit for me is because it felt very fast. To me, it felt like we were jumping from one thing to another, then to another, at a very quick pace. At first it's like, oh no, Cricket's been captured. And then it's like, ooh, but now Cricket's escaping. Ooh, now Cricket is free. Ooh, now she's in the hatchery. And then it's the egg hatching with the, oh, ooh, the wonder of life. And then it's arson. Like, all of that happens within an hour, I think? So yeah, I personally would have preferred if the book had slowed down a bit and actually let these events breathe. Okay, but two smaller critiques that I also have is that the book doesn't really follow up on a few things. Like, at the end of this book, Katydid is still captured. Cricket's mother doesn't know that she knows the truth, and there just isn't a resolution given to Cricket handing out the flyers and trying to spread the truth about Queen Wasp. Like, yeah, all three of these things could be followed up in subsequent books, and I understand why none of that stuff is followed up upon, because then the climax would have been even more packed. But that personally, to me, did make me feel like the story of the book wasn't really finished. And I personally would have preferred to see these three really big major things be resolved from Cricket's point of view, since all three of these things are very significant towards her, rather than us having to view it from a different character in a different book. And just one more small critique that I had with this book is that I don't know if I just wasn't paying attention, but they find out that Queen Wasp, the way that she's been able to control all of the Hivewings, is that for the last, 40 years or so, she has been injecting the plant into the eggs of baby Hivewings. I'm like, yeah, that's great. That makes perfect sense as to why everybody is being controlled by her. But what about the dragons before she started doing that? What happened to everybody who was already out? Like, I guarantee I'm probably forgetting something, because that's something so major that there has to be an explanation as to why dragons over the age of 40 are still presumably affected by Wasp's mind control. I don't know, either A, I'm straight up just misremembering it, or that's something that's going to be expanded upon further on. Okay, so on to the good. Now there is a lot of good in this book. A issue that I had with the previous book was that the Lost Continent didn't really grab me. But this one definitely did. Like, the entirety of this book had to be locked down and very invested in it. Every single time that I had to stop reading this book, I was like, but I want to continue. And, I have to talk about that twist. I haven't been this surprised at a twist in Wings of Fire in a very long time. The twist was so significant that it made me feel the need to talk about it on Instagram. Casual plug right there. Like, damn. The twist that Katydid is actually Cricket's mother. I did not see that coming. I did not see that coming at all. I had zero clue. I just thought she was a really good big sister. And the fact that the previous chapter ended with Katydid being taken by Wasp, that just emphasizes the impact even more. Like, I think that twist was brilliant. Okay, so another positive does need me to kind of retract a statement that I made in the previous video, where I compared the Silkwing and the entire situation between the Silkwings and the Hivewings to slavery. And like, yeah, it kind of is. But also, reading this book, it's also, oh, this is more like classism, in which these two concepts are inherently connected, I guess? Especially with the roles that the Silkwings are given, and also with how the Hivewings look down upon the Silkwings, due to them being a different tribe. But this could also be a stand-in for the rich, higher upper class looking down upon the poor lower classes. Like, damn! How bad does the system need to be where you can very easily confuse classism with slavery? And I love how this book still goes out of its way to humanize the Hivewings. Like I mentioned in the previous video, how Hivewings could also be oppressed themselves from Queen Wasp. And yeah, that is 100% what's happening here. They just don't know it. Most Hivewings are so busy looking down that they're not able to look up. My main example of this is when Cricket is talking to Katydid, and Cricket tells her how Queen Wasp is able to control the hive, and how she has essentially forced her rule among everybody. And after Cricket finishes, Katydid can't take it, she can't comprehend it. She starts saying like, oh no, Queen Wasp, she has this stuff because she's the queen, she keeps us safe, she's in charge. The Hivewings have been fed so much propaganda is that across their lives, these lies have become the foundations of their society. Queen Wasp isn't only talking through the Hivewings when she takes control of them. No, the Hivewings are also saying Queen Wasp's words, fully consciously, without them even knowing it. Like, damn! That's great! I love that! Once again, it seems like that the entire message of this arc is essentially, fuck the government! And in my Lost Continent video, I did critique the epilogue with how it wasn't subtle in the slightest, with how it handled Luna on Pyria, and how I believed that, ooh, this doesn't really seem that necessary, because this will probably just be expanded upon at the end of every single book. But no, I'm already wrong. One book later, and I'm already wrong. Both the epilogue and the prologue of this book is following up upon Luna being on Pyria. And I'm very interested to see that this is including characters from the other arcs. I mean, like, for the epilogue and prologue of this book, it includes both Turtle and Tsunami, and it ends with a dragon called Willow, a Leafwing, encountering Turtle and Tsunami on Pantala, in what I presume is the Poison Jungle. Although, this does lead to this book essentially having the actual prologue included as chapter 1, including Cricket's first experience of the dragons being mind controlled and how it doesn't affect her. If this book actually had Cricket's epilogue and prologue instead of the Pyria stuff, then maybe we would have had more time to flesh out the climax a bit. But, these epilogues and prologues are clearly building up towards something. So I presume both of these are essential towards future books, hence why they were included. Okay, so, on to characters. Now, I'll fully admit, I don't have a lot to say here, because there are very few new characters who I have something to say about. But starting off with Cricket, since you know she's kind of important to the book. Now, I like Cricket. I like Cricket as a character. Hell, as a protagonist, I might prefer her over Blue. But I will say, this is probably more of a problem with me and possibly not paying attention. But I am not able to identify her character arc. Like, I don't know if this is me being stupid or forgetful, or knowing me, probably both, but I can't for the life of me identify what her character arc was. The only real change that goes through Cricket's story is her finding out where she came from, and I guess maybe her character arc was her maybe becoming more confident, since at the end of the book she is able to stand up to her quote-unquote mother. But I can't for the life of me think of her character arc outside of that. I don't know, I probably just missed it. I was probably just being stupid. But hey, that is definitely not out of character for me. Now, as for new characters, there's Katydid, who, yeah, she was kind, she was caring, I cared when she got taken away, but I don't have that much to say about her beyond that. There's the whole Chrysalis lot, who I'll fully admit I have nothing to say about. The only thing that I have to say about one of them is that one of them has a secret relationship with a Hivewing, like one that Blue and Cricket do. But instead for them, the genders are reversed. Like, yeah, for me, there really wasn't that much to say about them. They're just there. There was Lady Scarab. I liked Lady Scarab. I liked how she was more blunt with her sense of humor. Then there's Lady Jewel, who is the owner of the Hive, since they're in Jewel Hive. I'll fully admit, she appears for one chapter. She doesn't really do much. But I like her because I think her dynamic with her mother, Lady Scarab, is hilarious. I think the conversation between both of them is hilarious. Like, it's very authentic to a conversation between a parent and a child. Now, I've got one more new character to talk about, but I do want to say something about previously established characters, particularly Sundew. Like, I said that I wasn't overly fond of Sundew in the previous book, but she has come around to me a fair bit here. Like, yeah, I like Sundew. And we finally get to see Queen Wasp in person. We finally physically encounter her. And I love how, at least to my memory, Queen Wasp herself doesn't talk. We don't hear a single word exit her mouth. Because we don't need to. Because we've already heard her talk we've already heard her voice through every single Hivewing, either it be with them being possessed by her, or the propaganda that she has spread among her kingdom. Like, I love how this character has said nothing, but yet so much. Was that a stupid sentence? Did that make sense? Or am I just talking nonsense? Now, in this book, our last new character is the greatest, the most powerful, the most destructive character in the entire series. Bumblebee. Like, I'll fully admit, I did not expect Bumblebee to appear in this book. Like, I was aware that Bumblebee existed, but I thought that she appeared in, like, the Poison Jungle. I wasn't aware she came into the arc this early. And you know what? I'm happy that she is. 'Cause she's hilarious. Although, I will admit, the name is another Peacemaker situation. Where, when I read Bumblebee's name, I'm not like, ooh, Bumblebee, the Wings of Fire character. I'm like, ooh, Bumblebee, the cute Transformer. The good one. Notice how I also said cute. There we go. I adore the back and forward she has with Sundew. I think they're hilarious. And I will say, I do probably just have a soft spot for Sundew and Bumblebee's dynamic, because their dynamic is almost identical to me and my puppy, because both of us have to deal with hounds from hell. Such a vicious animal. Okay, so yeah, those were my thoughts on the Hive Queen. Now, I did really like this one. In my opinion, this was a massive improvement on the Lost Kingdom. But especially in the climax, it does falter a lot for me. I just personally would have preferred that a lot of the open plot threads in this book were concluded in this book, because a lot of these problems are central to cricket, and I would have preferred to have concluded them through cricket's eyes, since these are cricket's problems. But now, going into the future, these open problems are probably going to be concluded from somebody else's point of view. Like, yeah, I understand why you would want to do that, so the reader would feel some kind of long-lasting consequences, but that did leave this book and Cricket's character arc, even if I can't identify it, feeling unfinished to me. So yes, I'm very excited to see what happens next in the Poison Jungle. And now, as for the drawing that I did in this video, I drew Cricket, of course. Now, like with Blue, this was my first time ever drawing one of her tribe, and I had a lot of trouble doing this. Throughout drawing this, I was like, ooh, this doesn't really look that good. Like, ooh, this doesn't really look like one of my drawings. But looking at the end product, I do like some of it. Like, I like the neck, I like the face, but I think my main problem with this is the horns. Referring to the massive horn on the back of her head. I did try and take inspiration from her canon art, where instead of having the horn connect directly to the back of her head, instead her horns are on top of her head and not directly connected to the backs of them, like every single other dragon. But I didn't like how it was coming along, so I ended up just attaching it to the back of her head. And I don't know, like the design of the actual horn doesn't stand out to me. And I had to change the lines on the horn because, to me, it started to look like something a lot less appropriate. So yes, those were my usual overly long, rambly thoughts on a Wings of Fire book. With the next book, The Poison Jungle, we will be halfway through Arc 3. And I'm very, very intrigued to see where this goes. Like, I've heard a lot of people complain about Queen Wasp as a villain. But so far, I think she's pretty good. Like, I'm very intrigued to see what happens in the future. Like, am I going to be one of the people who likes Queen Wasp as a villain? Or am I going to get to a eventual point where I go, oh, that did kind of ruin her for me. But I don't know, because we're just going to have to wait and see next week. So now, that is all I have to say. So, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you another day.